Hey guys, I'm gonna go over in this video why quadruped vehicles are not the greatest in Halo 3 or in Halo Reach. I've essentially tried 5 different unique methods to try and get this working, but there's nothing too great. So the first method is the obvious one, using the giant tag. The giant tag is a pretty obvious choice because it has IK for all the legs, and it's used in the campaign, and it's a quadruped vehicle, and it's pretty good. It works very well in campaign, but when you're a player, controlling it is pretty bad. And the reason for this is that it has no animation interruption, meaning if I press forward, it will do the entire animation before I can do anything else. Or if I turn right or turn left, there's specific angles it can only turn at, and that makes controlling it a pretty big nightmare. You can see here as I go up this mountain, this is a pretty steep angle, but the IK is trying its best to get its job done. It's pretty decent, but it's pretty pointless when it doesn't sync at all in multiplayer, and I'll get to that. So this is from the host point of view in a multiplayer Forge lobby, so I'm able to enter it just fine. I'm gonna have my buddy come in here. He's just gonna stand here. He's gonna try to drive it. He can't. So I just told him, stay in here and let me drive it, and I can show off what happens. So when I move forward, you can see he just fell out the back and is just floating there. And if I go into Forge mode and I fly over to him, essentially his game is acting like the Scarab never moved. So for him, he's walking on the Scarab, but on my end it looks like he's just floating. And I will get to showing his point of view. So this is my friend's point of view, or rather the client or non-host. So you can see he tries to drive it, doesn't let him at all. It's completely desynced. So once I get in, he doesn't even see me enter the seat. He sees me walking around. But in reality, what's happening here is the Scarab is moving forward. You can see my character kind of jittering in and out and teleporting because the seat is just completely desynced. So he'll start walking around here. And on my end, like I said before, he was kind of just floating around. But for him, the Scarab just remains in one spot, so it's completely desynced and just unusable in multiplayer. So the second method here is with the Mantis vehicle type. This was used in one of the Halo 3 betas. It didn't really function too well. You can see here, it moves super slowly. It, from my understanding, mostly relies on physics-based constraints and like motors and stuff on all the joints, and controlling it is pretty bad. And you can see I fly over here, and basically if you're driving this on something that isn't a flat slope, it will just flip over, and it can't get up these slopes at all, so it's pretty unusable for multiplayer. And you'll see here when I'm going up this here, I even managed to somehow flip it over. So really not a great alternative. So what I'm gonna do here is, this is the Mantis vehicle block, and I'm going to change its speed from 1 to 3. And this is what ends up happening. So I'll just let you watch for yourself. Yeah, it's pretty unusable. So it's just stuck being slow and just doesn't work well. So this next one's pretty interesting. This is using the same vehicle type, but on a much larger scale. So we managed to turn the Scarab into a vehicle that uses the Mantis vehicle type, and it's really not much better. I mean, it looks great. The animations are decent, and it works okay on flat terrain. It still isn't the greatest to control. You can kind of see it doesn't go like exactly where you want it. Um, and then in just a second here, I'm going to try to climb the hill over there. And once again, things are not going to go well. So yeah, it pretty much does the same thing. It just flips over and just cannot get up any type of slope. So the next method I tried was using other vehicle types. And the only other decent one I could try was using like the tank mover physics. So what I did here was tie the walking animation to moving forward. But this has its own set of issues, such as if you try to move left or right, it plays the animation. If you move backwards, it will still play the walking forward animation. So you're pretty much just limited to one animation. But the only good thing about this is it's great at going up slopes, and the control is pretty good. It just looks kind of bad. And like I said, it's locked to like one animation. And also, another big issue is you can turn in place and no animation plays. And then the legs basically pause during the animation, so it looks really weird and legs will get stuck in midair. So the last and probably the best current method is using the biped tag, but this has its own set of issues. So you can see here I have a pretty well functioning locust, and the problem is pretty apparent right off the bat. It doesn't really have any IK, and just certain parts of it will start pretty much floating when you're on a slope. So it's not the greatest looking, but in terms of functionality, it's the best we have by far. So what I'm doing here is there's this flag in the biped tag, climb any service, and it seems promising, but it's very buggy, does not really work. It just causes it to like tilt and stuff randomly, and it also has a tendency to crash the game, which actually happens right here. Another huge flaw with bipeds is you can't put them in the forge menu in traditional ways. You have to like create effects to spawn them in. You can see it just respawn there. And really the respawning is just destroying any vehicle that's on the old spawn point. It's not a great way to do it. And often the biped can spawn inside of like little the death pieces and stuff. And you can see right here, just like shot in the air. Another big issue with this is that since you can't put it in the forge menu, you can't really spawn it and have it despawn properly. Like I said, it's like attached to an effect, and this effect quote unquote spawns it in every 3 minutes. There's other issues with driving them. I was just showing it there. If you kind of mash a bunch of directional inputs, it'll instantly turn around. And on top of that, when you're controlling a biped, you can press control to make it jump, but I don't want this thing to jump. So I set the jump velocity to 0. And if you just hold control, it'll kind of like spam that jump and just kind of rotate wherever you're looking. And it looks a little weird. You can see here, due to the wacky way we have to spawn them in, I'm still driving a Locust, but another one spawned in despite the one I'm being in not being destroyed. Halo Reach has its own set of issues. They're mostly related to potentially netcode. So I'm here with one of my friends again, and you can see as the host, I can drive it just fine. It works the same as Halo 3. I can like crouch and shoot and do everything. You can also see my friend is able to spawn in his own elite biped, and unlike Halo 3, Halo 3 doesn't even let you put bipeds in the forge menu. It just won't spawn them in. Something else that's interesting is once they're placed down, you can't pick them up. So right here, my friend's trying to drive it. He just can't. It varies per map. Boneyard, he just wasn't able to drive it. But if you do this on Forge World, it will just crash the host. So this is from my friend's point of view, aka not the host of the lobby. He can see me walking around and driving just fine. The only big issue is whenever I crouch, it does this for some reason. Kind of floats in the air. But otherwise, everything else is great. So right here, you can see my friend trying to spawn in his own elite biped. And he's able to pick it up at the beginning, but then once he goes up to it, he can't pick it up again. He can't drive it. Can't really do anything with it. So in conclusion here, there's no great way to do mech vehicles or quadruped vehicles, but I'm going to end this off by showing you some clips of some of the sort of working quadruped and mech-like vehicles just to show the potential.